Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Patches Metal.
1, 2, 3, 4. Patches Metal!
Before I start this and before anyone's going to think that this is just another one of those hating on Slipknot videos that a lot of people seem to be making, well, have been making for forever, let me just clearly state that I love Slipknot, and Slipknot has always been a very big part of my musical education, I guess. As I've told you guys, the Overdrive Timeless CD, that was my first actual CD I ever owned. The Rhapsody of Fire CD was the first real metal CD I've ever owned, and Chimera was the first album I ever bought with my own money. However, Slipknot to me was the first band I ever heard in which they were grunting and screaming and using harsh vocals in general. And the album I got, by the way, it's the self-titled album, the one with the red cover and where they're like crawling through a painting or something. At least that's what it looked like to me back then. I really need to dig up that CD sometime again. But that CD was fucking scary to me. Like, literally, I was scared to listen to it and I was scared to pick it up. I was fucking 7 years old or something back then. And it was really intimidating, and it was really awesome. I mean, it was amazing to me that music could get me that scared. And I already had that experience with the Rhapsody CD, but not as bad as Slipknot did it, because with the Slipknot CD, every single song was scary, and that in some way appealed to me. So I would just, from time to time play a track and then be all like, whoa, that's fucking intense, and I would move on again to my less harsh CDs, because like I said, I was quite young and I was really unexperienced with the whole metal thing on its own. But yeah, like I said, that album was really cool to me, and something that still stands out to me from that album, from the self-titled Slipknot album, is the extreme diversity. And not only diversity within the songs, though that also has a lot of diversity, but also the way that they really find a way to stand out, even within their genre. I guess their genre is nu metal. Even within nu metal, they have such a unique kind of sound. And maybe it's been done like after them, but I don't really think their sound has been done before them. And they really kind of invented a kind of combination. It's difficult to explain, but I guess people who know the actual album will understand what I mean, because every explanation I try to give with it doesn't make sense, because they weren't the first band to really include scary aspects with metal. Definitely not the first band to include, DJ kind of stuff with metal, but still they had a very distinct sound. And seeing them live, I was still very young back then. It was then when they went on tour with, I think it was with Machine Head and Shadows Fall and As I Lay Dying. It was really, really weird lineup on that tour. But they went with that tour, and I saw them live, and it was fucking stunning. That was also one of my first metal shows I went to. Maybe even the first one I went to on my own, but that's a different story. Anyway, love that album, has meant a lot to me. So there's that. So no hate, let me rephrase that. No prejudice from my side towards Slipknot. Never have, never will have. Really love the band, especially that album, also other songs from Slipknot. However, to me it's quite obvious that Slipknot has run into two problems, of which the first one is that their creativity and their imagination has either just run out, or it's just not very good anymore. And I'm only, of course, basing this on the songs I've heard, like of the demos they've posted, and I haven't heard all the demos because I just haven't had the time for it, and haven't been wanting to, actually. I mean, I've heard The Devil in I, I've heard that other one track they released right at the start, and then that last one I can't even recall all the names because I'm really filming this on the spot because I owe you guys at least one video per week. But yeah, it's no longer creative, and I'm making this such a big issue because that to me was the biggest, most important selling point of Slipknot. Their creativity and the way they've had this very distinct sound that they could always maintain, and it just doesn't feel like they've maintained it on these new tracks. And the last one they posted, I think, was, well, it was either yesterday or the day before that or something like that, along those lines. At least that's when I heard it. I was listening to it at a friend's house, and just the first immediate thing I thought, which isn't really a compliment coming from me, is that it sounds way too much like Trivium. It's the simplicity, and it's the clean vocals interchanging with grunting, and then again changing to clean, and then again back to grunting, in exactly the same way that Trivium does it. And I like Trivium, I guess, for the guitars, but you know, it's this kind of way of really of making it way too easy and way too predictable to write songs. You know, fucking the first half of the song is grunting, and then you go back to clean singing for the verses, and then you go back to you know, grunting again for the choruses, or the other way around. And it's so fucking predictable, and with these new tracks they don't really add anything else to it. Musically, like musician wise, it's not very interesting. They don't do anything amazing. There's no mind-blowing guitar solos on it. The drum sound isn't even as cool as it always has been. And I haven't really kept any track of the Slipknot musicians because I know they've been going through a shitload of changes, and of course with Paul Gray dying and with Joey Jordison leaving for mysterious reasons, whatever the fuck that is, legal reasons I think they call it, whatever, you know, it really shows, I guess, or it really sounds the part where just things are missing and their sound isn't really their own anymore. And then the second problem I was running into was that Corey Taylor is using his clean vocals, you know, like I mentioned earlier. Actually, he's using his clean vocals a little too much, and it's a little too clean. When I listen to a track like Wait and Bleed, for example, those are some really metal as fuck sounding vocals, and that's just, it has its own kind of scary factor, and it has its own kind of raw metaliness, I guess. And this stuff is just basically a small bit of Stone Sour, like, pasted into Slipknot. And I told this to this friend where I was yesterday, and he basically told me, like, yeah, that's their own decision, you know. I mean, they are Slipknot, they decide whatever they make. And I'm like, of course, if that's the road they want to take, then that's completely their own choice, and that's fine. I'm not going to judge them over it, but I am going to judge their music over it, because to me it just plain sucks. And the thing with releasing new albums, in my opinion, is that in some way you have to keep people's attention, you know, and you have to keep it interesting to actually listen to. Because I'll be quite honest, if I like your first album better than your second album, or I like your fourth album better than your third album, or whatever, I'm just going to listen to that, and I'm not going to listen to the one I dislike. And this, you know, this sounds obvious as fuck, but it's kind of scary how so many people don't realize this, that when you release something that's not as good as something else you've released, then people are just going to tend to not listen to this. And if so many people claim that this is not as good as your old work is, then it's just going to literally, like one-on-one, translate to people just not listening to your new material. And then there's always people complaining about, yeah, you're just a fucking hipster and you only like old stuff. But just like I said, if I like your newer albums better than your older albums, then I'm going to listen to your older albums a lot less. But like, to me, the problem with these newly released tracks, it's just so sucky to me that I don't even really want to listen to the entire album. I guess I am quite looking forward to it, because I'm really hoping there's just going to be some tracks on it that are going to have more imagination in them. But so far the stuff I've heard is just the most basic, generic copy pasting of choruses and verses, and that's about it. But since I'm only talking about the demos and not about the actual finished album, I am going to leave it at this, because there's not really a lot more that can be said about it. By the way, no, I'm never going to listen to leaked tracks, and I will never, because I completely fucking despise listening to leaked tracks. We'll mention that probably in another video sometime. But yeah, I am going to mention, the final product once it's actually done and released officially. I will talk a bit more about it, just see if I was right or wrong, if they actually could find some imagination in some other songs, or if they just haven't. We'll fucking see. Please like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you all next time again.
1, 2, 3, 4.
However, the thing that from everything in the metal community makes the least sense to me is the hatred for metalcore. I just really don't understand it. And I've heard some arguments over the past few years that again make me want to barf. The first one